Welcome to Motivated Masculine Men. So, what we do here is we have conversations that guys don't normally have, such as, those ones that we have around campfire after a couple drinks or out in the bush or, at home, whatever, when we're catching up. And the key to today is to inspire you, educate you, and challenge men to embrace healthy masculinity, deepen their relationships, optimize their health, and step boldly into their purpose. So today we have Eugene Lee on. He is literally on the other side of the world from me. I'm here in New Zealand. He's over, I believe, Eugene, you're over in the UK. Am I correct on that
So,
still?
so when we had our first call, and just to give like how fast time goes, you were episode 27 on my podcast in March 2023. So we probably recorded like a month before that. And now, last week, I just released episode 167.
Good work,
So
man.
I was like, yeah, milestone. So I'm 3 years at it now. But like, I was living in Ireland at the time, but since
Right.
then, I'm now living in Switzerland.
Okay, cool, sweet, perfect. That's good to know because I want to come paraglide the Swiss Alps. So I'll hit you up, and if you're still there, I'll hit you up when I finally do get there. Might come over for my 40th next year. But no, that's awesome, man. Cool. So again, still on the other side of the world, we've had a conversation. Honestly, personally, I can't actually remember that conversation because it was that long ago, and we've both had so many interviews, talked to so many different people since. So it's going to be good to reconnect. Eugene reached out to me when I was like, "Hey, I'm rebranding Fight the Burnout into Motivated Masculine Men. We're going to talk about men stuff. We're going to talk about deep conversations that we sometimes challenge to have, but it's all about helping, you, the audience, to open up and have those conversations because we lose too many men to suicide, to divorce, to, the unhealthy life factors. So we'll jump into all sorts of stuff today. But Eugene, what's going on in your life at the moment? Like, let's dive straight into it. Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, because I think the best place to start is again where we were in 2023 was just starting out my Burnout podcast. Give yourself some leeway. And how that even began was just me when I first burnt out and I looked up burnout podcasts. There weren't many burnout podcasts, and there was no burnout podcasts hosted by men.
Yeah.
It was all they were all female led podcasts. And the one message that was recurring on all these female burnout podcasts was women experience burnout different to men because of they have the emotional load because they say that men don't have the same emotional load when it comes to burnout. And for me, that was a big thing because I said, okay, men don't have an emotional load when it comes to burnout, but I am emotionally exhausted. So is what I'm experiencing burnout? Because no men were speaking about it on podcasts, or at least I couldn't find them. I was like, is it that men don't experience burnout? Is what I'm experiencing burnout? What am I going through at the moment? And I found out pretty quickly through self-reflection and a lot of research, men just don't talk about these things.
We don't
They
talk
really,
about
and they
anything.
definitely don't. They don't put it up on social media. They definitely don't post it out to the world.
Oh,
So,
that's true.
when I was about, wow, I think I was almost 3 years into after I had burnt out. A lot of self-reflection, a lot of work done since then. I was like, well, there's no one else really talking about this, so I might as well just document my experience while I can still feel it and remember it. Because if I go back and like I could brush this off and say 5 years from now, oh, whatever I was going through back then, it wasn't a big deal, and I will completely downplay it and dismiss it for what it was. But it was a big chapter of my life,
Yeah.
and I remember recording the first four episodes in what I liked to call my car office. So I'd sit in the driver's seat of the car. It was the only place where the acoustics was good enough, where there was no screaming or shouting or a TV in the background. And it was like, and just, it was in August 2022, and it was a sweltering hot day. And I was just sitting there with the Anchor FM app on my phone
Yeah.
recording the podcasts. And every 30 seconds, I would stop and I'd say, can I post that online? Like, will I be sued for saying I felt stressed at work? If I say that, that these are the feelings I'm having, is someone going to come after me? And there was so much time. I think I spent about 4 hours recording the first 8 minutes because I just
Wow.
kept going back and deleting it and then like trying to script it out to be like, is this what I really want to say? And every time I stammered, I'm like, when I stammer, does that mean that I come across as inauthentic? And then
Mhm.
I go back and rewrite it out. But for me, it was a great like self-therapeutical session where I was
Yeah.
giving my self-counseling and really writing it out and being like, is this really what I felt? Is this really
Yeah.
what I was going through? And when I published the first four episodes, like the first week, and said, look, they're out there in the world now, I was like, no one's going to listen to this. And it wasn't like thousands of people listened to it, but the people who did listen to it were like Facebook friends, work colleagues, and this. The first thing that happened was I got massive backlash. People saying, if you know what's good for you, you'll take that down. You won't, people
Wow.
don't talk about that around here. What you've done is career suicide. No one's going to want to employ you if your mental health is not in check. And all this was coming at me. And I was like, wow, I've just been my most vulnerable with the world. And this is the response I get. And if I hadn't done the work, if it was me from before burnout, if this was me 6 years ago and someone said that to me, I'd shut down and just lay low, bury myself in a hole for a few weeks and forget it ever happened. But I knew that the reason why people were responding this way was because no one was having these conversations. I was
You're
the first one to bring up.
you're
And
holding a mirror up to everybody as
yeah,
well. Like my
yeah,
wife's just gone
exactly.
through stuff where she resigned from her job, a couple months ago with nothing to go to, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Like, and you're holding a mirror up to everybody else, and it's such a true fact. And I'm inspired by what you did because me personally, I didn't get that backlash. I was already kind of teaching a lot of stuff, so it was kind of expected that I would do that. But I'm proud of you, man, for putting it up there and then sticking to it, like actually sticking to it. And now 100 and some odd episodes into it, and we're here talking. We're here talking again. It's amazing because yeah, us men do get, unless we have a good circle around us, a good circle of men around us that are supportive. We struggle to open up and actually let it out because is are we going to be judged for it? Are we going to look weak? Are we going to, I mean, we can't look weak. We're supposed to be the men, the protector, the providers. And yet sometimes you need to be vulnerable to actually be able to protect and provide at your highest level. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. Because I had done that work, that was my response. I was like, I'm being my most vulnerable self, and that gives me strength because no one can use it against me.
Yeah.
So when people responded and said, "Oh, you should take all this down," I was able to recognize it for the deflection that it was. So I could have responded and said, "People don't like what I'm doing, so I better stop." But how I reframed it, how I saw it was these people are so uncomfortable with these feelings, the stress, the overwhelm, burnout, not being in control, that they don't want to talk about this. So I need to talk about it more. I need to have more of these conversations. I need to challenge them, ruffle a few feathers so that they start having these conversations and form their own opinions on these conversations rather than just telling me to shut up. And that's how it began. And then I kept on, I did 10 episodes between August and December. And I was almost at the point of giving up because everything was so negative. And then someone said to me, Eugene, we know what you're like. You are psychotic when it comes to work. I was this like hyper achiever. I was working 12-hour shifts, so 48 to 60 hours a week. Before work, 3 days a week, I was getting up at 3 a.m., going to the gym until 5 a.m., then driving to work, working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then afterwards, I was doing 2 part-time university degrees with 2 different universities without telling each university that I was doing the other degree. And that's how psychotic I was.
And
And then
and you wonder why you burned. Like it's funny hindsight, isn't it? Like there's gonna be men out there that are listening that are
yeah, and
like, oh, wait a second, that's what I'm doing. And it's like, dude, like you wonder why you burned out. Like
yeah, it
list
was
it all out,
it,
you'll see it.
it was insane. In that was all 29, and I had so much other family responsibilities going on as well at the time. And the way that I coped was immersing myself in work rather than dealing with emotions. I used to just take on more responsibilities, take on more work, get that validation, get the sense of achievement. And that's how I got to the point where I was doing so much, but I was really just breaking apart inside. And so, and then getting back to the point where someone told me that, I was psychotic, for this is how I was. And then I burnt out. So whatever I did for my recovery was going to be equally as psychotic, so it wouldn't work for them. And I took that with a pinch of salt and was like, okay, recovering from burnout is not a cookie cutter approach. What worked for me is not necessarily going to work for everyone. That being said, I'm not the only person to ever have experienced this phenomenon that they called it, a workplace phenomenon called burnout. So I just reached out the same way that I found you. I reached out on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all these podcast networking sites and said, if you have a story about burnout, stress, or overwhelm in the workplace, and you found a way through it and you want to share your story, give yourself some leeway as a safe space to do that. And I mean, here I am 3 years later, still recording over 100 guests. So I think I've built up enough evidence that I'm not the only one.
No, no, you're definitely not. As you and I know, I've gone through this, and as anybody who's been here for a while knows, yeah, we've both had our journeys, totally different journeys. Mine's trauma based, and from policing, but it's still the same. It's the same outcome in the end. Burnout is the same outcome. You don't want to get up, memory loss, fatigue, depression. Mine showed up as anxiety as well, but from the trauma side of things, you end up pendulum swinging from that hyper cool, I want to do everything, to do absolutely freaking nothing. And getting out of it takes a process, but it's difficult, it's hard. But at the end, man, like, to be perfectly honest, my wife and I were actually sitting down on the couch last night, ended up having a conversation about a buddy of mine, but then it turned into like a whole conversation around like parenting and childhood, and like my wife and I always do, which, having a good feminine counterpart to your masculinity is very, very necessary. But we were talking about that fact of like all the stuff that we've gone through. Our counselor told us 85% of people will not make it through what you did, but if you do, you'll be together forever. And the reason I bring that up is because I would not change anything from going through that experience, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Eugene. I would not change anything, and I'm absolutely grateful. Yes, it sucked, and I never want to get there again, and I'll never allow myself to get there, to burn out again, or to that level at least. But I am so grateful for it because of all the learnings, all the people that I met along the way, all the different things that I did that came out of it. I'm so grateful for going through it. Now, do I wish it on anybody? No.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on
same.
that as well?
I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I'm so grateful for how I responded to it, as in my journey, my reflection, and all the work that I put into it. Because when I first burned out, I was told to take 4 weeks off work, rest, recharge, and go back to normal. I was sold that burnout was like a sore throat, and it was like a personal failure. It was because I wasn't managing my time properly that I burnt out. In a way, it was right. I wasn't managing my time properly because I wasn't setting.
Two different types. Sorry to interrupt. There's two different types of burnout. There's physical burnout, which yes, rest and recovery is the number one key to fix it, to work through it. I don't want to say fix it, but to work through it. But then there's emotional burnout, and that is not solved by just doing less. That takes some deep, hard work to work through and figure out what caused you to get there and how to counteract it and how to come back from it.
Yes, exactly. For me, because it was being treated as a physical ailment because I wasn't managing my time properly, I felt so bad for those 4 weeks that I was out of work, that I was like, how did I let myself get to this place where I'm so exhausted, where I found myself having a panic attack at work, hyperventilating, and now I have 4 weeks to recover. I'm going to Google everything to cure this thing called burnout. I don't know what it is. And I was going to do like a speed run of 40 different things, just do all the yoga, do all the meditations, do all the journaling, just do everything for 4 weeks straight. And I'll be rid of this burnout thing, go back to my normal life.
How'd you feel at that?
That's not how it works. That's not how I was shattered after those like 3 weeks. And I was like, I'm going back to work, but I'll be fine when I go back to work, because my coping mechanism was immersing myself in the work. I was not acknowledging the emotional side of burnout. And fortunately for me, when I burnt out, it was February 2020, and lockdown happened with COVID the week after I returned to work.
You're being forced to recover.
So I was fortunate in a way that even though we were frontline workers, we had a lot of downtime because there were shutdowns. We couldn't export any product or anything. And in that time where I'm in lockdown, can't really go outside the house, I can walk within a 2-kilometer radius, and I'm spending a lot of time at home alone. It forced me into self-reflection. It forced me to do a bit more research, in-depth research into why am I feeling this way? How am I feeling? What is feeling? Because I had made myself emotionally numb for so long because I didn't regulate all that emotion. I just said, work through it. And that came from a narrative when I was a kid growing up, was that if you have time to worry about your problems, you're not working hard enough. And that was kind of to not have us be lazy around the house. We're working on the farm. So if you have the time to worry about your problems, then you're not working hard enough. That carried through university, carried through my job, and it just led to a very toxic place where rather than dealing with emotions firsthand, they just bottle up, and I immerse myself in the work and try to work to work through it rather than working through the problem, working through the emotion and regulating it. It was like, no, work can solve everything and I get paid at the end of the day. That's not how it
No,
works.
work is an escape half the time, especially for us guys. We get singularly focused as a masculine trait. You get singularly focused and laser focused on one thing. It's why back 2 million years ago we went out and hunted because we had the spear, we'd focused on the animal and we spear it. So our peripheral vision is not normally all that great. Whereas females, feminine traits, majority, they have better peripheral vision because they're all about looking around, looking for threats, what's going on, watching and watching and watching everybody in the tribe. And so again, it comes into it, we're talking about burnout here specifically, in men, but the masculine side of us is around, okay, cool. How do I fix this problem? How do I solve this problem? Well, guess what? Burnout is not one of those things that you can fix. Masculinity is not one of those things that you can fix. It's something that you have to sit with and you have to actually work through and figure out what is best for you and your needs at that time in your life. What have you learned? Let's draw it into some of that masculine side because that's what we're here to talk about. But we're also having this deep conversation. Again, thanks Eugene for sharing it. I know you share it quite often. I know it's kind of different being on the other side of the microphone where you're talking about your story. As podcast hosts, we don't talk our story all that much. We hear everybody else's. So again, I say thank you for coming on here and having that conversation because as men, it is, as you said in the beginning, it's going to go one of two ways. People are going to praise you for it, or they're going to slate you for it. Because again, I think society's gotten a lot better since you and I started doing podcasts, 3 years ago or so, 2, 3 years ago. But it's still out there. It's still that thing of, don't talk about your problems, just fucking deal with them. And so it is better. Also, it pendulum swings the other way. You get a lot of men that kind of use it as an excuse, which I don't think is great, which is partly why I got away from the like kind of mental wellness coaching because I saw too much of that. And that's why I started this podcast up. Let's have actually those conversations, but let's not, wallow in it and let it define us. From that masculine side of things, what are your thoughts on working through this in a healthy way? Because I know a lot of times, men and masculinity can show up in a very, we'll call it toxic, even though I don't really like to use that toxic masculinity kind of thing because I think there's just dickheads and then there's actual men. One of my guests, actually, one of the first females, and when we rebranded, I asked her what's the trick to a man not being toxic, not having toxic masculinity. I was like, what's the true thing of masculinity? And she's like, don't be a dick. And then she sent me a cup because the podcast episode is called "Don't Be a Dick," and so she sent me a
Oh,
cup
this was the
from
one
the
with
other side of the
Ashley,
world.
with
Yeah,
Ashley Smith.
yeah, with
Yes.
Ashley Smith. Yeah, so it was like she was like, "Don't be a dick." So she actually sent me 2 cups that have "Don't be a dick" on them, and so it's my coffee cup every morning. And it is such a reminder that a true man he's not a dick. He actually looks at himself. He reflects on what he's done, and he actually owns up to the things that he's done wrong. So on that side, when it comes to kind of your journey in that, and all the interviews and all the people that you've talked to, and all the learnings in that, from a masculine state, what do you feel is kind of the key thing to being a true man and even working through that or preventing how to become get to that burnout stage if we want to go down that road?
Yeah, I think the first thing to touch on is I hate the term toxic masculinity. It's one of the most politically incorrect. It's borderline derogatory. It's not true. It's toxic human traits and it doesn't necessarily have to be coming from a man. But the traits that we see that are less desirable in men come from a place of confined masculinity. It's a place of they want to establish control, dominance, stoicism, that this is the traditional way. This is the way that the caveman was. This is the way the warrior was. The warrior wasn't always on the battlefield. If the warrior was if the warrior did not process the trauma when he came home, or did not have a life when he came home, that he only lived on the battlefield. Like it's the same with probably working in police force. Be hyper vigilant at home as well. Then that's not going to be healthy masculinity. It has its place when you're out in the field. Yes, out on the front line. Yes, it has its place, but it doesn't have the same place when you go home and go to bed.
No.
Or spending time with the kids.
Your masculinity turns up different. It has to turn up differently at
yes,
home, and you have
they're
to
different. Yes.
I'm gonna throw this question out there right now. What do you feel with that? And I know you were going somewhere with that, so I do want to let you finish that, but it just has popped in my head and I'll forget it if I don't say it. What do you think the importance of having a strong feminine presence at home to counteract your masculine?
It comes back to how we define masculinity. And I feel that people always put it into the box of this is the macho man coming in and never showing any feelings, and he's the hard man who does all the work, the breadwinner, the provider. But don't ask him like you're not going to expect him to cry at a Disney movie. If he is, then you think he's having a mental breakdown because men don't show emotion. And that's the caricature of masculinity that exists, that people think is the norm or what they expect. And then when they say, oh, but then if a man is to show his feelings, that's a feminine trait. That's, for me, that's not the case. There is a book. I actually had another guest on the podcast not long after you. His name is Ed Frauenheim. And he co-wrote a book with Ed Adams called Liberated Masculinity, I think. Yeah. It was Liberated Masculinity. And it was defining the differences between the traditional sense of masculinity, which is this confined sense of control, dominance, and stoicism, and with being more emotionally available, more in touch with your emotions, having the courage to speak up for others, but also having the courage to self-reflect and to process your own emotions in a healthy way. That it's not at the bottom of a beer bottle or a whiskey bottle in many cases. And being able to have humility and be accountable for your actions.
Yeah.
Because people feel that they have to have this larger than life presence. They have to have this big ego, that they need to be like bigger than the bear, that need to wave their hands and be bigger than the bear. But you can't show up in all aspects of life that way. If you do, then you need to be dangerous, but you don't need to be a threat to everyone in your life.
You need to be dangerous, but you don't need to show
that power.
Yeah, you don't have to show that danger. The most dangerous person is the quiet one in the corner. It's the guy who doesn't have to show that he's dangerous.
And that's something that I was not aware of with a lot of people, especially when I first started the podcast. I am very quiet, very introverted, but I'm a very good listener. But I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". And a lot of people were scared to approach me. They were scared of me because they didn't know how I was going to react. And because when I first started the podcast as well, like my headshot was like crossed arms, and like it was the only photo I had at the time, because again, it was COVID. I couldn't go out and take any pictures. And I was like, look, I'll stick it up. It's the most professional photo I have. People thought I was this like really rigid, stern businessman who was really scary. And a lot of people, when I was doing the podcast, they'd say, let's skip the pre-podcast interview and just go straight for the 1 hour session. And they would be scared of me for the first 20 minutes. And then they'd start to loosen up, warm up to me, and then the conversation would flow. And when I'd stop recording, I look at them and say, what the hell just happened? What was that? And they were like, I was so scared of you and I didn't know what to say. And they were giving me one-word answers. I'd ask them what they do for a living. They give me a one-word answer. They say coaching. And then I said, why did you think I was so scary? And then they're like, oh, you're actually so friendly and I can't, like, we really need to stay in touch. I said so much time was wasted because they saw me as a threat. Yeah. They saw me as being scary. But I never used that, let's say, I didn't go out of my way to threaten or scare people. It was just a presence that I had.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who do, they kind of make themselves larger than life, and they feel that they have to be aggressive to assert dominance. Yeah. Because otherwise they're afraid that their masculinity will be threatened.
I'm glad that you touched on that one, because you do see it in. What's your thoughts on men who show or have to show that dominance? And I'll put my hand up and say it used to be me. Even sometimes I still do it now, even when I catch myself. Well, you have to assert that dominance. And why do you think men do it?
It's, for me, it's a place of ego and insecurity. Like I've had this even in workplace events where I've had managers come up and challenge me for arm wrestling because
you're a big guy. It's amazing when you're a big guy.
This was like a terrier of a guy who just come up and say, we can settle this with arm wrestling. For me, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to cause a fuss. And I'm like, if you want to arm wrestle at the bar, sure, doesn't bother me. But then they'd follow up with, I'll take you outside and I'll fight you. I'll fight you outside. And I'm like, what are you trying to prove here?
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of the times I just go, I'd laugh it off and say, yeah, yeah, I'll meet you outside. Sure.
Yeah.
Like you go away and you can
It's
spend as long as you want outside. I'm not going.
it's amazing, isn't it, Eugene? Like I'm 6'6", and weigh just around that kind of 100 kilo normally. Pretty lean always, work out quite a bit, not as much lately, but and so always have that present. And I was actually saying this to somebody at work yesterday that I was like, they're like, oh, we were talking about, I don't know, somehow we got talking about the city and going to town and stuff like that. I was like, I don't go to town anymore. Like I haven't for over 15 years or something. I think it was the last time I went to the nightclubs and that. I was like, because everybody tried to pick on me. She's like, but you're super tall. I was like, it's like they narrow out the big guy and they go, I've got to have a fight with that person. And again, that is not healthy masculinity for anybody that's out there listening. That's not, if you find that you're around those kinds of men, those are not the kind of men that actually know who they are, and what being a healthy man is, and being that, again, I say provider and protector, and it's this day and age, providing is not making the most money. Providing is not, bringing in the bacon. It is, well, what are your thoughts on what is providing these days for men in a masculine sense?
Providing, like,
As a man.
in masculine, yeah, like it doesn't have to be. So some people feel that they need to be the breadwinner, to be the provider, but there's so much more dynamics in whether as I think as a single man, you need to provide for yourself. Really, you need to be independent. You have to have the ability to be independent and also interdependent on others. That when this isn't a one man job, I need to be able to reach out for help. That's still being a provider. You need to be able to access other resources when you need them. Same as in any relationship. Look, if your wife is earning 10 times your salary, that should not be an insecurity. That's like, I'm so proud that she is able to earn 10 times what I'm earning. But at the end of the day, we're making sure that we can make all ends meet. If that means that I have to spend more time at home with the kids, I'm still providing. That's still a healthy masculine relationship. Now, if I'm going to say, oh, well, she's providing, so that gives me more time to drink beer all day or play video games all day and just let her spoon feed me, that's not healthy masculinity. That's not showing up as your best self. If you're fully capable to go out and work or to be able to provide in some way to take care of the family or help take care of the parents or something, provide and help and offer value, that is still being a provider as a man.
What about protector?
I think protector goes hand in hand, though. You can be a protector without being like an assailant. You can be defensive. You can protect and create a secure and stable environment without waving a gun or a knife. I can create a very safe and secure environment and be dangerous, but as we said, be dangerous but not aggressive and threatening. Because as soon as you come across aggressive and threatening, you're going to find trouble.
You're going to be the danger.
Our trouble will find you. Exactly. You're going to be putting others in danger. But if you're able to be seen as someone to be a force to be reckoned with, but someone knows not to cross that line with you, if people will have more respect for you, if you can assert that level of, like, the word danger, people think that you're going to be a threat, but like swimming with sharks is dangerous. But the shark is not going to come on land to attack you.
Yeah. Eugene, I want to talk a little bit about masculinity in relationships, because it's one thing that I feel that I don't hear a lot around on, like, how to create really good relationships, both intimate and also friend relationships. Let's talk about the friend relationships first, and then we'll get into the intimate ones. How do you feel you have a good circle of, like, let's just say guy friends, that masculine side of things, so you can be a guy. It can't be the same around a group of women as you can around a group of guys. You just instantly change a little bit just because there's different factors. Do you have a good group of men that you kind of hang out with, or when I say a group, I'm not talking, like, for me personally, I've got like 3 or 4 guys that like are my guys. Yes, there's some people out peripheral wise, but there's 3 or 4 guys that I love to hang out with, whether it be all of us together or just one on one. Do you have that kind of circle? Have you found that kind of circle, especially over the last few years going through the burnout stuff on
Yeah,
that?
so like especially when I was the circle of friends I had in university was like, especially in Ireland, drinking culture is
Like
probably
New
the
Zealand.
most toxic part about Ireland. Yeah, the most toxic. And probably all the Irish guys are over in New Zealand and Australia as well,
Yep.
also because they won't accept their behavior here. But they literally just they won't have a conversation and a deep conversation with another man unless there's been at least 3 or 4 beers.
Yeah.
And then if anything comes out that and you confront them afterwards to say, hey, look, this is something that I'm concerned about. You brought this up last night. Say, oh, don't mind that. I was probably drunk. I was completely
Brush it
water
off.
bottled. And they'll brush it off as if don't acknowledge that. That's completely invalid. That was just drunken conversation last night. And I learned I don't want to surround myself with that anymore. I want to be able to have honest conversations with men about how I'm feeling, about the emotions I am going through. Because if I'm going through these hardships, then they must be going through maybe not the same level of hardships, but they must be going through something. So I made a very honest decision, like with myself, just said, look, I have people in my circle that are not in any way serving me. Like to have them there, that they're only immersing themselves in drink or drugs or behaviors that I would not tolerate. And I'd say, look, I'm not hanging out with you anymore. And some of them, I'd say it at point blank if they were really in my face, being like, "Oh, you're being really dry. You're no fun." I'm like, "Yeah, not a phase of my life anymore. Good luck." And then others just kind of phase out. I'm like, "We don't really spend that much time together, so you go your way and I go mine." And what that helped me do is, I mean, time is a limited resource, and attention is a limited resource. I can have 3 or 4 close friends,
Yeah.
and it was a bit more difficult even since I moved to Switzerland. So what happened there was when I moved for an engineering job that's 50% travel. While Switzerland is now my base, I have an apartment here. I'm not here half the time either.
Yeah.
So I'm in China, I'm in Austria, Germany, I'm in South Korea next month. And it's like Basel is my base, but do I really have any circle there? So I had to make a
Yeah.
conscious effort to go out and network and meet people. And because I've already I've done the work myself, I've done the self-reflection, I know how I want to show up. I'm not going to go into a bar and try to meet people after a few beers or a few cocktails. I want to be able to sit down and have an honest conversation with a guy. And so I have a small circle here in Basel also, where I can meet with 2 or 3, or I can meet one on one. And one of my favorite things since I moved here to Basel in Switzerland. So the River Rhine is like the longest river in Europe. It
Yeah.
runs through like Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland, and in Basel you can get this. It's like a waterproof bag, and you put your clothes in, and you roll it up, and then you can use that like as a floaty,
You float
and
down
you
the
just jump
river.
into the river and you float along the river, and it's like 2 miles up the river. You just float along, and there's no distractions.
Yeah.
Can't look at your phone. Can't do anything. You're just with whoever is floating alongside you, and you
Yeah.
can talk about life. And there's no distraction. And it's
So
the
good,
most serene thing I like. So I've done that with a few friends, and you just go along. You can have honest conversations, and like no one else is going to be listening to you because you're probably like 20 yards between the next people floating along. That it's just the best. We just had great, honest, just deep conversations. And I'm glad that I have to be very intentional
Yeah.
about who I allow in that circle.
Yeah.
Because if I say, "Oh, I'm up for anyone," if you're up for a few drinks and you want to hang out with me, I'll talk all night. It's surface level talk.
Yeah, a
It's,
lot of
"Hey,
times.
how are you? How was your weekend? How was work? Let's gossip about work." And then sports, cars, or something like that. Sports, cars, politics, and religion are not my topics. It goes over my head, and I'm like, I'm sure you'll find someone else who will love to debate you on those things and talk all night.
Yeah.
That's not me.
Yeah.
I'm like, but anything other than sports, cars,
That's
and
that's the
crypto and all
great
these
thing when you
things,
start to know yourself is that you start to actually go, hey, like the people that talk about sports cars, they're not my thing. But if you like, outdoors, if you like, these specific things, then yeah, I'm your man.
yeah,
I wanna talk and touch towards because I know like from what I see out there, especially a lot of the masculine conversations and things, and even like there's a lot of talk at the moment around the world around intimacy and the declining population and birth rates and this and that. And obviously it comes down to a lot of, to have kids, you need, two consenting parties, blah, blah, blah. We can go into that, but it's not a topic for me to talk about at the moment. But from your perspective, first, if you're open to telling, do you have an intimate
Yeah.
relationship
So
currently? You do?
I have a partner of 5 years.
Cool. And you're traveling
Yeah.
50% of the time, so obviously that's going to throw dynamics into things. But how
Yeah,
do you
that was a really fun conversation.
bet it was? You have to have a strong relationship. Like I'll go away for work. Like in the past when I was doing my coaching stuff and that and police stuff, I would go away. I went away for 3 months and everybody was like, "Oh my God, are you guys okay? Like, and it's like all those insecurities again coming up. It's like it's crazy. Whereas us, we're like, 3 months is nothing in the grand scheme of life. But uh, Eugene, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, again, for men out there that might be struggling to find relationships or women that are listening to this that are like, I want to know more about this masculine side so that, maybe they want to try and, use it to find the right masculine guy that, complements them. What is your thoughts on the whole? Because I've been in my relationship since I was what 20, like almost 20 years. So I can't really talk to the modern day or even like the recent days of like relationship and like turning up as a true man to relationships. I just know what my wife and I have built over the last 20, almost 20 years. What's your thoughts or input or all of go for gold on the kind of using turning up as a true man in that masculinity to find or in a current newish relationship?
Yeah, I think the best reading for any man or woman in that space is. Are you familiar with Robert Glover?
The name.
No More Mr. Nice Guy,
I have
and
not
he's
heard of that
he's
one.
a psychologist who talks about nice guy syndrome.
Yes.
And the basic concept of it is all of these men who try to be the nice guy, but the nice guy is probably the most toxic part of a man, because what they do is they try to be nice, they try to be the best friend, they're the best like male friend of a woman, but the underlying intention is that someday she'll give in, someday she'll reciprocate,
You're in friend
or
zone,
they'll be
bro.
in a relationship where they want to be the provider and they say, look, I'll take care of you, I'll take care of everything, I'll pay all your bills, but you will love me in return. And they're seeking to fill that mother wound. And it's the underlying expectations, the covert messaging, that they have expectations of the other partner. And this is in both homosexual and heterosexual relationships. It's in the trying to be the nice guy, but not making your intentions clear as to why you're being the nice guy. And then what happens is that they erupt and say, I do all of these things for you and you just don't appreciate me. And then they gaslight. So
Mm.
all of these toxic things come up because they feel, well, if I come across as the nice guy, and it's not being genuinely nice. It's about playing the
There's
nice
an
guy
agenda,
role until they get what they want.
a
So
significance.
he covers that really well in the book, and lots of scenarios where it's like there's some of them where they just have the covert expectation, the things that aren't discussed because they want to avoid conflict or avoid rejection. And then one example of a guy who says like, I haven't slept with my wife in the past 9 months, and
Mm.
I think I'm going to head for divorce. And it's like, and then they asked in the group, well, have you asked her? And it's like, no, she hasn't asked me either, so she's not interested. And then they said, okay, look, we have one task for you this week, and it's to ask your wife if she wants to sleep with you. And then he came back the following week and he was like, so I've got something to share with the guys. So it happened. And they're all applauding. And they're like, so what happened? He said, I asked her. And she said yes. I was like, did you ask her like why it hasn't happened in the last 9 months? And she said, because you haven't been asking, I just thought you weren't interested. So I
Mm.
didn't want to approach you. And he was almost going to end the relationship because he couldn't have that one conversation with his wife
Yeah.
of like 15 years. So I feel that a lot of people are in that box where they just don't communicate their expectations or what they value or what they're looking for in a relationship. And they feel that if they come across in a way that they are safe, that
Mm.
they're secure, they're stable, they can rely on me because it's coming from a place of insecurity that I don't have enough value for them to like me the way I am.
Mm.
So I have to play this nice guy role. My biggest tip for anyone who wants to go out in the dating market is to meet these people in person. Avoid dating apps, especially now. It's going to be all.
I'm so glad I never had to
Yeah,
deal with dating apps.
like it's because when I'm in Basel, I'm trying to make new friends here. I go to all of these networking events to meet people in the area. And there are so many people who are just seeking, they just want to find the one person. And that's why they're going to these business networking events because they think they might come across someone who could have relevant interests or might be like, they're not looking for someone who has a 6-figure salary. They just want someone they can talk to. And I show up to these events and I'm like, look, I'm talking to people and up to about 10 p.m. I can talk to them. And they say, okay, this is when the drinking and dancing starts. That's not for me. I'm going home.
I'm out.
Yeah, I'm like, nothing good happens after 10 p.m. But there's other people out there. But it's like 80% female. And then you've got these older guys who are like in their 50s and they're like, it's a free market for them. That they're like, wow, there's like 80% women in their 20s and 30s here who are coming to these networking events, but there's no men coming along to meet them in person because men in their 20s and 30s only meet these women on dating apps. They're only used to having online conversations. They don't know how to have a face-to-face conversation with them in person unless they have already some assurance from the dating app that they've confirmed that they want to go on a date, that there's less of a fear of rejection.
That instant gratification.
Like you just go in person, and if you don't like many times, you have to have the fear of rejection. You have to like in sales, it's like you have to have like 25 no's before you get a yes.
Yeah,
and
something like, stupid like that.
If you go out to or go to a bar and you just want to talk to someone, you don't go out with the intention of, if I'm talking to this person, they will be in a relationship with me for the rest of my life. Talk to a person, you get to know them, see if they're single, see if they're not, and see if they want to be a friend or if they want to be something more.
I'll add on to that section as well, because this is one thing that I do know from talking with friends and just also watching is, don't be that sleazy guy expecting you're going to sleep with them just because you talked to him, just because you walked up to him. Trust me, they can see it. You see it in movies and stuff all the time. The guy walk up and he's real, and it's just like, but you see it sometimes, like my wife and I'll go out and, we'll have a few drinks or something together, have conversations and we'll be at the bar and you'll see it. You'll see the guy walk up to the woman and you're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And then you'll see another guy walk up who just is like, just wants to have a conversation, spark things off. And you're like, oh, that actually probably is going to, like, not tonight, but that's going to turn into a longer thing. And it's, you can see it. You can see it straight off the bat. And so, men, don't be that sleazy guy, because that's not being a man anyways. That's just, again, the agenda side of things. Eugene, I mean, we've known each other digitally for quite some time. I'm a huge purpose and passion, purpose guy. How do you think, I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, knowing yourself and the importance of it to be, that true non-compartmentalized masculine man, as you kind of have mentioned, or that toxic masculine man, which is the buzzwords these days. Where do you think purpose falls into that?
People can't have purpose if they don't know what their values are. That's a big one for me. A lot of people that I've worked with always say, oh, that doesn't align with my values, when they feel uncomfortable. They say, oh, it doesn't align with my values. And as soon as you ask them, what are your values? They just put a wall up and be like, no, this is too much. You're really getting, what are your values? What do you value? How can someone not align with your values if you don't know what they are yourself? So, and that was a big thing for me going back to the burnout, was I had to understand that my values in my 20s were very different to the values in my 30s. And I know that my values are probably going to change a lot in my 40s and 50s and beyond. I have to understand that it's not a fixed thing at birth. I had these values, or a fixed thing from how I was raised. These are my values. As I go through life, my values are going to change. And when it comes to passion and purpose, the things that you're working towards, the things that you find meaning in, are going to change. And that is okay. That if you feel you're going off purpose, you have to understand it's like, okay, have circumstances changed? Is it that it's not aligning with my values? Is there a way I can work? Is it in my control, or is it outside of my control? And once you bring all of these into place, I feel a lot of people, once they feel that they're not in control, that they need to get back in control, no matter the situation. Because as long as they're in control, they're safe, or they feel invincible, or they feel that they won't suffer rejection or failure or all of these things. They feel that whatever path they're on, as long as things are going their way, they're on purpose or they're on track. That's not the way. That's not how life is.
You get the
If anything,
you get the most out of things when your life is not in control.
Yeah. It's like you go to video gaming, and if there's no challenge in the video game, it's like, oh, it's smooth sailing. You're level 100 the whole way, and you just look at a guy, he dies. How long are you going to play that game? You might get like a kick out of it, being like, oh, I'm like Godzilla for 10 minutes, and then you go, okay, there's no real challenge here. I might
Let's
just be walking across a flat map.
It's just like all those guys. We'll talk sports just for a second because you see it in sports, and I'm gonna talk cars real quick. Sorry, Eugene, but you think about, I don't know if you're familiar with Formula One. You probably have some sort of, hear about it or whatever. It's very
I've
popular
had a
these
lot of
days.
Formula One guests because they're high performance coaches and they work in
Yes.
the Formula One industry. And I'm like, yeah, no idea what you're talking about when it comes to cars, but I can understand like the analogy.
Yeah, but and so that's where I'm going with this is you take Lewis Hamilton for example. He was top of the game for so long, and it's that thing of like you really have to have a specific purpose and passion in order to stay at the top. Because once you fall off, you are ripped apart. I mean, even still, I mean, he hasn't been at the top for quite a while, and so many people like are like oh, what's going on and all these different. But at the same time, it's like okay, now will have that a different drive because he's not at the top. But when you're at the top, it is so hard to stay at the top and to stay the expert, to stay so good at it without a driver, without a purpose. And man, it's the same thing from from even what you were saying, leading on from that. It's such an important factor to know those values, know what you stand for, and then you won't come off as that toxic person because you're not trying to hide anything. You're not trying to to be that monkey that bangs his chest. Is that kind of what I kind of heard if I summed it up in a nutshell?
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's understanding the long game or the infinite
Mm,
game that whatever you're working towards, your values are going to change, your passion is going to change, your purpose is going to change depending on life circumstances, and that's okay. But you have to be very clear on what direction what your target is. Some people are just on autopilot. For me, that was me before burnout. Burnout was a great wake up call. I was on autopilot, gotten a job. I knew what I was running away from. I didn't know what I was running towards. And I pretty much knew that I couldn't sustain my lifestyle long term. But I kept saying, I'll give it 5 months and reevaluate. I'll give it 5 years. I'll give it 5 years and reevaluate, is what I said. So that's what I told myself at 22. I said, I'll wait till I'm 27, then I can see how I feel then and reevaluate. And then I got to 27. I was like, I don't know what vision I have for the future. So I'm just going to, leave it to chance and just let other people make decisions for me. I'm comfortable just immersing myself in the work and not dealing with these emotions. I put myself back into it. That did not serve me. If anything, my body gave me the wake up call I needed to be like, I need to take control of my life. What got me through my 20s was able to get me by,
mm,
but it wasn't going to help me to grow and see a future for myself in my 30s, 40s, and beyond.
yeah.
Those habits that I had were not sustainable. It was alcohol, Red Bull, Monster. I was dry scooping pre-workout in my car to get me through the day at work. And that was an
Some
11
red
a.m. thing. It
flags.
was just part of my day. I was just part of my day. And having a can of Monster in the car all the time. And the thing with the can of Monster, one of the biggest changes I made when it came to changing habits was I noticed that, oh, I'm drinking 6 cans of Monster a day and I don't I'm still tired.
Your adrenals would have been
And it had no effect on me. And I was like, this is really strange. I was like, they must be weakening the Monster formula. So what I did was, well, I could save a bit of money on Monster here if the caffeine isn't even having an effect. What I did is I drink half a can and then I'd fill the half the can with water and then I drink half the can again, and then I fill it up with water again. So I keep on diluting. And after about a week, I noticed that I still had the same can of Monster in my car. It was just full of water. I was drinking water out of a Monster can. So I realized I'm not even chasing the taste of Monster anymore. I'm just chasing the habit of drinking water out of a Monster can.
yeah.
And I realized I was like,
Change your
well, it's not
habits.
even the caffeine anymore. And that was the habit. That was a big change for me. I was like, I
Mm,
don't need all this caffeine in my life. If anything is ruining my health and I'm not getting any benefits from it, I might as well be drinking water.
yeah.
But that's me going off on a tangent again.
As we do that. Actually, while you're talking, what's a challenge that you're going through at the moment, Eugene, and how are you working through it?
For me, and this comes back to a lot of self reflection.
Mm,
And especially, I first read Robert Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy probably about almost 2 years ago now. And I still catch myself having nice guy traits. And because it's relevant to me, and next thing I see something come up and how I respond to a situation, I'm like, am I being a nice guy here? It's in my focus, in my awareness, that how I respond to this situation, what is the underlying intention behind it? What is the identity I'm trying to have here? And like one thing for nice guys is that they don't want to get in trouble. They want to be seen as the quiet guy in the corner who gets all the work done. But when something goes wrong and I might be at fault, I have two options. It's cover it up and blame someone else, or just admit to the problem and learn from the mistake. And sometimes that niggling comes back in the back of my head, being like, I could leave this until someone else finds it 2 years from now, and then they have to fix the problem. Or I can own up to the mistake now that I'm like, something doesn't seem right here. Maybe I could learn something from it and stop countless mistakes happening and train other people in my team on how to stop this happening in the future and save a hell of a lot of money and save a lot of mistakes not being made. Because the thought crosses my mind that I say, the easy way out is to pretend I didn't see this. I have to acknowledge that that is a challenge for me. I have to own up and say, this is me not showing up at my best right now. I need to show up. I need to own this and show up if I want to be the person I want to be.
Yeah.
So in the small lens, it looks like, oh, you're bringing a lot of extra work upon yourself that you really don't need to. And when I bring up the problem to my manager, I'm like, look, this is something that needs to be addressed. I made this mistake and I didn't realize it was a mistake until I confronted you. How many other people may have come across this and just ignored it? Let's highlight this. And he's like, oh, you're really making a mountain out of a molehill here. And I'm like, this could be a mountain 2 years from now if it isn't addressed right now. So it looks like a lot of work now, but it could be saving a lot of things in the future. And in terms of me being authentic to myself, I need to be honest when I see that I'm showing up not as the best version of myself. It's all part, and that it is a challenge that it's easy to take the easy way out, or it's more desirable or it's comfortable just to take the easy way and not have to worry about it, make it someone else's problem. But in the long scheme of things, it doesn't sit well with me. If someone finds that 6 months from now and says, "Oh, why didn't you flag this?" It's going to sit in my gut wrong and be like, "I really should have flagged that 6 months ago."
Yeah, yeah. Why is it so important to you to do that?
Because that's if I was a leader and I had people working in my team under me who were just ignoring these things because it said, "Oh, not my problem, not my responsibility. He can sort it out. He's the head of the team. He can take care of this. He can take the fall." That's not someone I want in the team. That's a toxic trait, and I don't want to show up with that toxic trait for my team either. Because if I allow for it in myself, I have to allow for it with others in my team also. So I have to show up and represent as my best self so that they also feel that they need to show up as their best self also. A standard has to be set.
Oh, I love it. It's great, and thank you for sharing that as well, Eugene. How can people? What's your podcast called so people that are listening and watching can go have a listen, especially if they want to learn more about burnout?
Because now it's everywhere. Have it on. Have Spotify, Apple, YouTube, everywhere. It's give yourself some leeway. Burnout recovery for high achievers.
Oh, nice.
I got a message from FeedSpot only this week. Saying that I'm in the top burnout podcasts in the world, and I'm like, wow. Oh great, I hit number 3, and I was like, great, I'm the only guy in the top 20 best burnout podcasts in the world. But I think that says something. I'm like, guys, we need to get more guys speaking about burnout here.
Yes, definitely.
But great. I've had so much more men on the show in the past 2 years, and I'm like, guys, we really need to start sharing this because most of my guests, and especially most of my wait lists, are predominantly female. They want to share their and help and everything. And I'm like, it's great. They really are making an effort to, let's say, deliver value. But men need to also speak up as well. I know there's a lot of quiet men out there who are not speaking up about their stories, and they don't realize how much of an impact it has on other men to be able to open up and be vulnerable with others and share the hardships that they're going through. Like I've had guys on the podcast who never recorded a podcast after it again. They just shared their story And that in itself it helped them that when they felt they were relapsing, they were quicker to reach out for help because they had opened up about it before. It was so much easier to open up again.
Yeah, it's so true. Once you do it once, it becomes not quite as hard to get there. Eugene, thank you very much for being here today. Thanks for coming on. Have some deep conversations. And
I just want to commend you as well for having this podcast. We need more men to have a safe space to be able to open up about our masculinity, our vulnerabilities, most importantly, our vulnerability, how we can regulate our emotions, how we can process those emotions. And we do need to have a network, a support network where we can do that. For me, when I didn't have an in-person support network, best place I had was a podcast because I was able to find people who were willing to speak up about their masculinity. I had great guests. I had Jim Young, Ed Frauenheim, Newton Chang. These were all around the same time that I had you on. And it really helped me to validate what I was going through, that I was not alone, that the emotions and the way I was processing them, it was not irregular for a man to experience these things. Because that's how I was raised. It was, we don't talk about emotions around here. You're a manly man. You're a manly, macho man. You don't talk about emotions. If you've got time to worry about things, you're not working hard enough. Problems are for lazy people. These were the mantras that were being thrown around by these macho men who are downing beers at the bar because they don't know how to process or tell anyone how they're feeling. So that's where I really commend you for having this space, having the motivated masculine men.
it's a mouthful.
Yes, but it's only by creating these spaces that we allow men to have a safe space where they can share in a safe environment. I tried to start something here in Basel as well. I tried to start an in-person men's discussion group, and there was a lot of backlash first by women saying, "Why are you trying to start a men's discussion group and not a women's discussion group?"
Because I'm a man.
And I said, well, as a man, I feel that I would better facilitate a man's discussion group. But if there's a woman out there who's willing to facilitate the women's discussion group, I'm all for it. But what it began with was a mixed discussion group. I said, look, the women want a discussion group also, and the men want a discussion group. Got them together. We had a workshop. And at the end of it, I just asked them, I was like, look, I can only facilitate one. I can either do men's or I can do mixed. And all of the men who wanted a men's discussion group came up to me and said they preferred the mixed discussion group environment.
Interesting.
And that piqued my curiosity, because the reason they felt unsafe in their head about a mixed discussion environment was that women would challenge them or they would cut across them and judge them. But because I was facilitating it in a very mediated way, where everyone got to say what they had to say, and then I'd open it up to the room for someone to challenge it, but they wouldn't be looking at them directly when challenging it. They'd be opening it up to everyone to say, well, this is my point of view. This is how I see it. And then we discussed it around the room, what the opinion was. And they said because it was a safe, mediated environment, they felt that it was more helpful for them to be in a room where they can discuss these things openly with women, so that they could get their point of view also. And it would help them to better say it with their partner or with their mother or with their kids, that they would be able to have these conversations in a healthier way, rather than going into a manly echo chamber and having men saying, yeah, this is how you should respond to your wife. And that's what they were trying to avoid. That's
an interesting insight.
It was such an interesting concept, because I thought that I'd heard so much about men's groups and the healing of having a men's support group. I said, this is what Switzerland needs.
Yeah.
But when I talked to them in person and facilitated the mixed group, they said they want the mixed group as long as it's mediated, that they're not being talked over, that it's a safe space for them. And they felt better having those conversations.
That's pretty cool. That's good. That's awesome, man. Well done. Good work on that one. All right, so final question that I have for you, closing out question. And I can repeat this for you if you need. If you could hand every man on the planet a single insight that would unlock his potential to lead, love, and live with purpose, what would you tell him?
Give yourself some leeway. Give yourself permission to question old beliefs that you've had growing up. If I was to stick with what I had learned growing up, I would be a very different person today, and not very likable by a lot of people. Not very likable by myself as well. You need to show up and give yourself self-compassion as well. You need to show up as your best friend. You need to show up for yourself the way you want others to treat you. It's the same as like love one another as you love yourself. You need to love yourself as you love one another also. If you don't show that respect for yourself first, you're not going to show that respect for others. And you may think you're showing that respect for others, but you're probably not. If you come across and you're always berating yourself and what you do, or if you're trying to build this facade, this fake identity of how successful or how much status or how big and ego larger than life you are, people are going to see through that eventually, and it will come crashing down. So the best thing we can do is be vulnerable with ourselves, allow time for self-reflection. Questionable beliefs is the biggest one for me. I think it's at 25, your brain chemistry stabilizes for men.
25 to 27.
And that's the best time. Yeah, it's the best time to question the beliefs you've had growing up, being like, does that really serve me? Is it really true? It's not whether it's true or not. Is that a truth that I want in my life? Is that my truth? It might be a truth for my dad. It might be a truth for my grandfather. It might be a truth for my gym teacher. But does it have to be a truth for me and how I want to live my life? Does it serve me? These are things we all need to question. Is this going to serve me with my family? Is this going to serve me when I'm dealing with my kids? Is this going to serve me when I'm in the workplace? Is this really how I want to show up? And when I was going through this, a lot of these were no, 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 no. I'm not happy with how I am. But that gives me the opportunity to change. And then I need to take accountability for that. I need to say, I'm not happy with who I am or how I'm showing up. I don't know how to change, but I'm going to find out. Yeah. I'm going to get the help. I'm going to have that conversation. I'm going to find out what work do I need to do to become that person I want to be, because it's not going to happen spontaneously. I'm going to sit on the couch one day and wake up enlightened. That's not going to happen. There's a lot of in-depth work I'm going to have to do. And one of the best ways you can do that is by first, like for me, sharing your story. Once you share your story and you say that out loud, it becomes more tangible, so much easier to work with.
Has less power over you.
It's one of the most self-therapeutical things anyone can do, is to be able to share their story. And then they understand the narrative that they have behind that story. Is it the narrative they want in their life?
Yeah.
And then and then being able to be of value to others. Don't show up expecting the world to give you everything. Show up seeing what can you give to others, and the world will reciprocate in time. Not always immediately, but in time. Good karma will bring karma back to you.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. Thanks so much for sharing that. There's some really good insights, and yeah, I'm so excited for everything that you've done. So proud of everything that you've done. It's awesome. It's awesome to see how over the last few years, it's amazing to see how far you've come from the conversations that we had 2-3 years ago to now. So keep doing what you're doing, man. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and sharing your insights. And yeah, till next time, keep ticking away at it and keep doing the impact that you do.
Yeah, awesome, Chris. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure. Again, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. And make sure that you like, subscribe if you do like this content. If you do like to see these videos and listen to this podcast, I do appreciate it. I do celebrate every time I get a new follower, or I have new people viewing and watching. It also helps, obviously, the algorithm. We all know about the algorithms. But then also, please, the impact of sharing this to somebody that you feel might resonate with, you never know what it's going to do to their life. So please do share it out there. Don't push it on people, but just, say, hey, I saw this and it made me think of you. And, that might just inspire them to have a listen, and then, might change their life forever. You never know. But till then, thank you very much. If you do want to reach out to us, if you want to be on the show, or if you know somebody that does, or if you want to talk about the Motivated Masculine Man Brotherhood, please just email me at brotherhood@motivatedmasculinemen .com, and we'll be in touch directly, me personally. Till next time, thank you, and stay safe out there.